Gmove and Waza to another episode of the Movecast, the community podcast on the movement. Today we have another special guest from the Bay Area in the US. We welcome Jomari from Podium. Jomari, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's fantastic to be here. I'm excited to be part of the Movecast, keeping it moving.
Amazing. Yeah, as always, I would like to know, how did you find your way into crypto and especially movement? And yeah, later on, what's the story behind founding Podium? Is there like a bigger story you can share with us?
For sure. Yeah, so my name is Jomari. I was born and raised in California. I came into the space in 2016 when I started doing my research. I went to Carnegie Mellon for my PhD in engineering and public policy. And during that time, I was really looking at the integration between how you actually apply technical expertise to actually public policy problems. And I was researching and looking into how you can do voting and have governance with a more informed democracy, and allow people to be able to like delegate or give or have representatives for specific issues that they cared about, ones that they didn't care much about, to delegate to someone who they trust to research that. I eventually found out that's called a liquid democracy, but I didn't know that term at the time. So I was trying to look up this informed democracy, this delegating system, and what technologies could support and allow it to be done via the web or via mobile devices, just with the digital framework, so we can move from kind of the paper ballot type system. I ended up reaching out to various cryptographers, technologists, reached out to like David Chan, one of the CryptoPunk founders who was referenced in the Bitcoin white paper. And he was talking about a technique he was using for randomized sampling using blockchain technology underlying it. So I decided I need to understand this technology. Started researching the technology, looking at what the weaknesses and strengths were. I saw that it was very a viable technology to leverage for that purpose. And I saw that it actually was very useful for bringing communities together around common sets of rules and a way of functioning, which is what Bitcoin is. Like, there was an economic concept that someone had, and Bitcoin was the expression of that. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. This can really be used for its purpose. But I saw like a potential weakness, which was like the long-term issue of quantum resistance. Because basically, if eventually we have quantum computing, it's capable of decrypting private keys, give that elliptical key cryptography. So I was like, okay, how do you resolve that problem to make sure that you have the long-term sustainability for this? So I ended up becoming the co-founder for the Quantum Resistant Ledger, and that was my introduction into the space, kind of jumping in, finding a problem, trying to solve it for this goal of meeting governance, of meeting voting, of empowering people to be able to have a voice in the issues that they cared about in a more direct manner. And hopefully, as you learn more about Podium, you can see how this connects. So, but before I got there, I co-founded the Quantum Resistant Ledger. We raised about $4 million through a public sale to people who were interested in this concept and want to see it come to fruition. It was about $100 million network valuation at the time. And I ended up leaving that project to really dig deeper into this governance aspect, into how crypto economics work, tokenomics work, and how they're expressed in this space, to really draw together all these various pieces. So I spent the next few years working on that, end up becoming the co-founder of Snowball on Avalanche. And Snowball was an auto-compounder venture DAO. And basically what that function was it was focused on how do you create a system of decentralized finance that allows people to maximize their yields in a way that is collaborative, but also maximize their personal interests. So we basically developed that. We launched a bunch of projects on Avalanche. We've launched the first stable swap, which allowed people to trade stable coins. We supported the launch of the first obfuscator and privacy layer, which was called Sherpa, which was a fork of Tornado Cash. And due to the recent things with Tornado Cash, they ended up just shutting down to make sure there was less legal liability. And we supported, we started working on liquidating and a few other things. And really at that point, I was interested, that ended up having actually 300 million under smart contracts. So we deployed over 200 smart contracts there. And I was interested in scale at that point. Like, how do you scale out all these different things that we're doing? How do you create an environment that allows Web2 users to jump in and experience the benefits and the awesomeness of what is capable of being made in this space? Because I still saw Web3 as a space of being able to create collaborative culture that is enforced on chain, right? To create an environment where people can come together wherever they are in the world and have agreement and to operate with the agreement and create value out of that. So I saw Podium as a way of getting there, But first, I had to experience what SocialFi was, and that was through the Arena. The Arena launched on Avalanche. It was called Stars Arena at the time, and there was a lot of, and it was after FinTech launched on Base. So Base is one network that exists that was kind of supported by Coinbase. Avalanche had a guy come out the woodwork. He launched Stars Arena around this ability to be able to acquire access to creators, to influencers, and buy their tickets or buy their shares and have immediate access to their exclusive groups. But I saw that there was still a weakness in that model because even though you had access, there was no real monetization layer of how the creator conveys the value that they're trying to add and making sure that there's a clear pipeline to receive value back from their fans and give value back. So some people started doing other things, but I said, okay, how can I rethink social media to provide the needs that they have? And I saw that no one had actually built an audio space app yet for the Web3 that I had seen. So, like, okay, if I fundamentally come back to Podium and I restructure how audio spaces work, I think this could actually meet the needs of creators and listeners. Because basically, here's the thing about Twitter and Clubhouse. Clubhouse actually has no revenue generation right now for anybody that's actually operating in this space. So a $6 billion valuation, no value creation outside the value of conversation. Twitter Spaces has the network effects, but there isn't really a strong way of monetizing the attention. So yeah, groups with 1,000, 10,000 people that you have direct access to in no way to actually show benefit or get feedback from the listeners in a way that created a more beneficial culture and community that had value adds going back and forth. There was no way as me as a listener to actually let somebody know that they're boring. Just say, hey, can you shut up, please, and let the other speakers talk? There was no way to do that. So I was relying on someone else to provide feedback. And that's not the way public spaces work. And when you have a public space, somebody's talking, you hear people cheer, you hear people boo, you have a way of getting feedback and refining things. And that was missing. So Podium, I decided was a way of actually creating a common platform where people have the ability to directly interact with the speakers by upvoting them, downvoting them, booing or cheering, and then actually reducing or increasing the amount of time they can talk. So there's this show called Showtime at the Apollo. And it's in New York, and then people come out to sing and they perform. And when they're singing, if people love them, they keep going. And you might even get an encore, go again. But if they start booing, you know what happens? If they start booing, somebody tap dances out, and then they have a big hook and they drag you all off the stage, right? And I want to create that type of dynamic environment because if you have that foundation, you have a dynamic, interesting, engaging space for people to actually add value with what they're talking about and understand when they're not resonating with the people that are listening to them, right? And then you layer on the ability to have payments in there to like tip somebody if they're doing good, or if you want to have more talking time to pay to talk, and everybody else get the benefit of getting paid directly because you're now taking up their time and being compensated in that ecosystem. That was really leading back to that governance, that aspect of being able to have your voice heard. And that's where Podium came from. It was a long road, but I saw this as being scalable in a way of actually changing the way people interact with social media. That was a long talk.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. I mean, you did a long way with a background which came from an engineering background, and I like those stories in which you don't have like in the beginning the idea and just go straight forward, but you do like a try and error. You find different ways. You see different influences coming in. And I think one you are covering here is a huge one. Yeah, especially because, as we heard and learned already, community is like a huge part in Web3. And it's something what is missing on the Web2 space, as you said already before, especially if you look on platforms as X maybe or other ones. And I really like the idea that you want to rethink that concept, and probably, I don't know, but I would explain it to me in that way, that those spaces which we saw, you mentioned Clubhouse, you mentioned X, they grew really, really fast in the COVID area. And I think maybe other platforms didn't have the chance because they were not organized enough. So there was X and Clubhouse, which took all of them. But now with blockchain and web3, there are new possibilities to catch that and to rethink that process, which you already described nicely. And yeah, maybe to attach to that, you already gave us some hints what Podium is, but maybe you can summarize in some sentences again, and maybe say us what is your main target group or main customer group you want to target.
Absolutely. So Podium is a Web3 enabled social media audio room or audio space. Essentially, we create public audio spaces that allow people to be able to directly engage speakers in a way that aligns the interests of what's being spoken with their personal desires. So essentially, it's an immediate feedback loop that we've created along with the monetization layer that really, for us, creates a real attention market space that's organic. Essentially, I'm a listener. Either you're giving me good information where I'm getting paid in valuable information, or are you paying me directly to listen to you? And for speakers, you're either getting paid to talk more because they value what you're saying, or you're getting off the stage, right? Or you're refining what you're saying to meet the needs of what people are saying. So really kind of making sure that Podium is about creating a space, a public space that anybody can access as long as they have an interest. And then on top of that, layering the ability to then be able to have additional controls over that moderation, such as you can only speak if you have over 1,000 move tokens, right? So to create like this filter to hone and customize the experience to meet the needs of the people. So that's not where we're going. We're focused on being able to not only create public space, but also filter speakers and listeners by various metrics, such as, are you participating with this NFT collection? Are you a holder of this token, some threshold? These things allow you to now create and tailor your experience to meet various needs, as well as create that sense of, okay, I want to be part of this group because that has value, or I want to be part of this group because that's value, or I just want to be in this larger public space where we can just talk.
Yeah, amazing. Again, also on that project, you can see coming a lot of different influences coming together. As always, one big is like the game theoretical stuff. You already mentioned it with giving feedback and so on. And I think feedback is, and we learned that on the other episodes already as well, is crucial for developing a product or for I don't know, creators and so on. Because how would you otherwise learn you are doing bad or wrong if you don't get any feedback? And what is better feedback than some monetization or some votings and so on?
Absolutely. No, it's true because, I mean, for me at least, I'm a heavy X space user. The crypto Web3 space, right now, one of our main outlets are Telegram, Discord, and X spaces and Twitter, right? So on Twitter Spaces right now, you kind of have these moderators, but you're pushing the conversation out to everybody. You kind of have the ability to write messages sometimes, but most people who are speaking don't even read those messages. So there's no way of actually creating an environment where you as a listener feels like you're an active participant in this space. It becomes closer to that podcast system, which I love the podcast approach, but even podcasts can benefit from the ability to be able to hear back from listeners, right? So this provides that ability to create a more virtuous ecosystem where people are able to align with their interests more effective. And then kind of we'll wind back to the other part of your question, which was you asked about that, but you had another second part of your question. And what was that part again?
The second part of the question was which main target group you are targeting to.
Main target group is everybody. Public spaces are for everybody. And that's kind of what's interesting about social media, right? Like, I'm definitely targeting initially people that are in the Web3 space initially, as because they already have access, they already understand some of the mechanics around community, around monetization, around just sending tokens that are on an on-chain network. However, I'm also interested in targeting people that are into music. I wanted to have karaoke nights. I want to have rap ciphers, right? Competitive rap ciphers where people are rapping, and if you're liking what they're saying, you can give them more time. If they're whack, but boo them off the stage, right? And create a really cool experience there. I want debates to be there. I want to be able to come if they're having a local council meeting, to be able to have the different candidates debate about their topics, and the audience able to directly have feedback, essentially to, are you on point? Are your policies hidden? Do I understand what you're saying or not? Like, hurry up, say your point so we move to the next person, right? I want the vibrant discussions. I want people to participate, are interested in growing and learning, being entertained. And that's really my target focus. People that are interested in creating vibrant community and understanding what the speaker's talking about, and be able to provide feedback to their interest in a real live dynamic way.
Yeah, and I really love what you said, especially on those things. Yeah, I think I don't know I think you said it's like a public space. And what I like is that people often don't even know that such a public space exists, and that the public space is giving them room to start something. So people are in their minds that they have some constraints and so on. But what happens if somebody is joining a random discussion and is just dropping a random fact or something, and people just are giving him the feedback to say, hey, that was actually a nice idea, that was a good point. And by directly monetizing it, the one gets the feedback to say, okay, that's something I could focus on, and work on it
Exactly.
more.
Yes, and one of the things I do want to clarify is that we do have, so we have the Web3 payments. We also have the Web2, like just upvote, downvote, no money, like, except for the impact is different, right? So that's how we kind of set it up to be onboarding for everybody in the world. Anybody can upvote or downvote, except for you might only add 1 second of time or 10 seconds of time to the speaker, or deduct 10 seconds. But if you're paying, like if you do 0.01 move, for example, you might be able to add additional 5 minutes to the speaker or additional minute, right? So the impact is different, but everybody has the ability to participate and engage and let their voices be heard. So if you have enough people, right, somebody could be paying, but you have 1,000 people that's like interested but don't have no money, that 1,000 people can still make a bigger impact than one person potentially paying. And even if not, now the person who's paying is compensating everybody else for their time. So you're creating a nice little system that potentially very balanced and interesting and engaging, that allows you to have a different level of scale.
Yes, I think that's maybe a little bit comparable to the time when the spam emails and so on, because at some point it was too easy to spam, and you can spam if it doesn't cost anything, but if it costs enough to get over the barrier, you need some stuff to put in, and you won't do that if it doesn't pay back for you. So
right. Funny enough, I mean, kind of just more technical stuff. The proof of work, which was used in Bitcoin, one of the original ways that was devised was a way of mitigating email spam. Essentially, what they wanted to do was create a system where you actually have to do a little bit of work before you can send an email off, and that would mitigate spam, because if you're trying to spam somebody, you're using a bunch of energy, and it's not cost effective anymore. So when you talk about spam, like that too correlates back to our space, which is about how do you align the interests of various people using technology, using cryptography, using economics, using the way people think, like the psychology, and bringing all of them together to align interests in a way that is mutually beneficial. So I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, and maybe one side question on that. Does that maybe prevent also something like robo accounts or some bot accounts? Is there something?
Well, it doesn't stop it doesn't stop it, but it does mitigate it. And then also that's where the filters come in, right? So if you want to filter things by, you have to hold X amount of my token, right? Well, then you create a barrier of entry that will mitigate like robotic accounts, because now there's a potential activity you have to do, or buy-in. You have to hold this particular NFT, and that NFT could be earned, right, from going somewhere in person, or it could be earned from proof of showing up or just from playing a video game and reaching some criteria, right? So if I'm a gamer, like I'm playing a Web3 game, I'm gonna earn some items, right? And that might be the criteria to access my Web3 gaming room, that you have to earn some item, right? So now I've created a filter now that allows me to push out most robo people or most civil attacks and really focus on the real people who want to listen and engage and create that meaningful environment.
Yeah, I think the options and possibilities are endless on that one. I mean, you already mentioned them, like NFTs. Yeah, and for those use cases, you can get so many different possibilities. And maybe if we want to go a little bit deeper on the technical side, I mean, you already mentioned stuff like NFTs and how they are giving the requirements on all the stuff. Was that maybe one reason why you decided to go on the movement ecosystem?
Yeah.
Maybe could you elaborate which aspects or features made you decide to build on movement?
Yes. Well, when it comes to movement, it's funny. I was introduced to the co-founders of MovementLabs when they was working on their pre-seed. I am a member of A Ventures DAO, which was a DAO that was focused on investing into the digital asset Web3 space. We looked at infrastructure, social media, gaming. I was heavy on supporting the gaming aspect and DeFi. And we met the team very early, and I had the opportunity to understand what their vision is around scale, and I was able to start seeing them bringing together community around what they was building. And because of my interest in empowering communities, I saw a direct alignment with their vision technically as well as socially what they were trying to build. So for me, also, you had technical stuff like the ability to mitigate reentrancy, the ability to build out a more safer, scalable environment for smart contract development. And all that was interesting and intriguing to me. But at the end of the day, I was really interested in the community aspect. I was interested in the fact that they had their finger on the pulse of what was occurring in the world. And I believe that they were able to position themselves to grow this network in a way where it had the network effects necessary to reach the billions, right? So that was my mentality. I saw the potential for them to change the dynamic of how smart contracts work. And take something that was already being done with SWE and Aptos and take it to a different level. So that was really my reason for coming to Movement, to be able to plug in early, to connect with some people that had high energy, high conviction about what this space can look like, and the ability to think broadly about how do you onboard developers, how do you onboard people who are building, how do you provide them the tools and the infrastructure that they need to be successful. So, for example, the fact that they made sure from day one to make sure that they had a EVM compatible move aspect within their system using Fractal. That was vital to me. That was understanding that there is existing tools that people have been leveraging that they need to integrate and move people to as they move them closer to using Move. That was a lot of redundancy, but I like it. So yeah, so that's why I'm building a movement. I believe that they care about the community, that they're investing in strong technologies, and that they're investing in the people to make sure that they create things that are beneficial and that will scale out what they're building.
Amazing. Yeah, it's cool to see how different the motivations are to get to movement, because other teams are telling as first point maybe the security and the speed aspect. Others, as you did, mention the community aspect, and I think movement is combining those like perfectly. But the community design, and I talked with Cooper in one of my episodes as well, is kind of special, how they try to incentivize not only in the short term, but also in the mid and long term.
Yes.
And I think that's what you are probably talking here about.
Yeah.
And what I would be interested in, you said in the beginning of our talk, you worked a lot in like the incentive mechanisms and like the voting stuff. And I was directly thinking about DAOs in that context. And is that something you see in the future of movement maybe enforced more? Or because I mean, we have DAOs for some years already, but they are still kind of not always seen as efficient enough. Is that something what might be changing maybe in the future?
Yeah, no, absolutely. DAOs are vitally important. And the thing that people have to remember about DAOs is that they're still an organization. And organizations need a system of functioning, and they work differently at different scales. One size does not necessarily fit all. So you have to be able to consider what is your use case, what is your purpose, and who is participating. A lot of DAOs try to take a fully decentralized approach where every vote is requiring everybody to participate. I think that's not viable because that doesn't work. That's not how organizations work. You need a system of delegation, of being able to assign tasks to people and empower them to follow through with that task and then have to come back for future funding or future input, right? So that's how organizations work. We have CEOs, right? And they're governed by our board, and that board is hired by the various stakeholders. You have to think as an organization, how do I make sure that my input is valued? How do I make sure that I can have the ability to replace the CEO or the board internally to the system, but still allow them to have the power to operate and execute on our vision in a way that's independent? Our government in the United States, at least, is a democratic republic. We vote for representatives who create law, and we have a president who execute. And then we have a separate judicial branch, right, who makes sure everything's balanced out. But we, the voters, are at the core of that. And for me, DAOs should continue to be moving towards how do you close the gap between the communication between your representatives and your people who execute and people who make the laws and the voter. That's where I think DAOs need to continue to focus at. And how do you create systems that align with that? I personally have seen some systems that I like. I really like conviction-based voting, which is basically a temporal condition where you stake something, and then through that staking, you stake for a period of time. And then your vote is more powerful the longer time you have it locked, right? So that means you have a long-term interest in what's going to occur. And as you get closer to your time of unlocking, your voting power decreases, right? That's a nice way of kind of mitigating some civil attacks, making sure that values are aligned. As we move into identity, then we're going to get some really interesting stuff happening, because now you can actually have one person, one vote potentially when you have identity. And then how do you allow them to delegate and actually assign their votes to various things? And you might need different systems for different votes, right? Maybe there's one system for voting on budgets and another system on voting on actually issues, right? Because budgets might be, you're balancing the various things that you can have buckets, right, of what you can spend on, whereas you need to explicitly vote for a specific issue. So that might be two different systems. And I think we're going to see, and we need to see, more diversity in those implementations. We've seen some of that happening on Ethereum. There was an organization called Aragon, and there was another one called Colony. They both did a lot of good work, I think, for laying the foundation. And now we have to take up the banner of what they've created and start implementing it at scale and as organizations. And that's one of the things that even for Podium we think about, because as we establish ourselves, it's going to be important for us to always empower our users to feel like they're a component of what's happening and to be able to have a say. So we are constantly thinking about this as well.
Okay, so would be a DAO structure a possible way for Podium in the future as well? Is it something you're thinking about?
It's very likely. Given who I am and in my interests, I would say it's very likely.
Okay, very, very cool. Yes, and then I think in the end it's why we are all in crypto, because crypto and Web3 combines those aspects of community and, like, from the technical side to give like a base layer which ensures that this community gets what it wants in the end.
Yes.
And yes, once we are talking about community, let's have a look on your personal community experience, which you had on the partner on testnet so far. Can you give us some insights how you vibrated with the community?
Yes, absolutely.
And what the vibes were?
Yeah, the Battle of Olympus, the Parthenon, has been an amazing, very unique experience for Podium. I love the ability that was created for people to be able to have these quests and tasks of varying difficulty that they're able to embark upon, from something simple as just following on Twitter, which we currently have I think over 95,000 followers on Twitter, I think attributing to the Battle of Olympus. And we had over 2,000 downloads and logins plus for using the Podium app. We've had over 100 different audio rooms created. We had rooms with over 100 people that have logged into those sessions, and this is all because of this system that was created. And I think, and right now we're working on some more quests that get a little bit more granular with have you done 5 cheers, 5 boos? Have you connected a wallet? Have you received any cheers or boos as a speaker? We like those are some of the quests that we're looking to including as we continue forward. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this experience of the Battle of Olympus. I think it was structured well. It was very clear about the various areas. You had explorers, people that just kind of like looking around socially. You had people that were actively engaged, people that were looking at actually doing on-chain transactions. I think those were called Spartans. And these various areas were very fleshed out and very interesting. And I've just enjoyed participating. And I hope that it continues and grows as a way of people to understand and see the opportunities of what's happening on Movement Network and what's being created. I know for Podium, one of the only thing that kind of was interesting for us is because we are in open testing, so we're testing an Android version. So therefore, everybody didn't have to have the same kind of access. People who use iPhones were able to access, but most of the world has Androids, so most people were able to participate and leverage it. But I know once we get to our fully featured aspect, which we are almost done, we currently have integrations with some of the existing larger SocialFi, like such as the Arena, which is launching soon. Our integration for them. So if you have Arena tickets, you'll be able to come on our app, even though it's on the Movement Network, and still be able to create rooms based on those tickets for like speakers only if you own my ticket, right? Or you can only listen if you own my ticket. And those type of structures allow you now to create that monetization aspect, that feedback, that filtering for content. And then when we finish that, we're gonna have the Apple version. And I think it's really gonna blow up there because everybody is gonna be able to access it and leverage it. And that quest system, the Battle for Olympus, laid the groundwork for that. So when mainnet hits, I think it's going to be wild and crazy times.
Yeah, I expected the same actually. Is Podium only planned for a mobile version, or you plan to bring it for desktop PCs as well, or how is that looking?
So the priority for us was getting the native app version first, and then looking at the progressive web apps, which allow us to be like on a website and then download it easier onto whatever platform. But it was really the application focus first because of the system, how people look at things. We want to create the app that sits on your phone that you can see, like when you turn, oh yeah, let me check out Podium. Let me get this push the notification. Websites make that a little bit more difficult. Like the connection and feedback loop is harder when it's a website. Because then you have to email you to remind you. But you can do push notifications with the app. So that's kind of where our focus was, making sure that we were as integrated into people's lives as possible. Because we want this to be their public space. When they feel like just chopping up or listening to something, instead of having to go to a podcast, they can listen to a live podcast, right? A live discussion, a live debate, a live karaoke or rap cipher, right? So that's kind of what our goal and vision was, making sure we was as central to the experiences as possible.
Okay, amazing. Yes, and I think, as you mentioned already before, the Parthenon experience, I think it might even go on the mainnet, like for new projects coming up, they can use it perfectly as a launchpad or something. And regarding community, maybe, do you plan to roll out any other like social media channels, maybe like a Discord? I think you are not on the Discord yet. Or you plan to focus completely building the community once both native apps are out? How are your plans on that?
Yeah, well, because Podium is a social media platform, we really want to draw people to use Podium. So for us to make a strong presence on Discord, which has its own services that aren't in alignment with what our vision is, seems to be a little bit counterintuitive. We would show up and have a little bit of presence at some point, I believe, on Reddit, we are on Twitter right now, because we want to make sure we have access to people there. So Twitter is a lot more open. Discord is actually kind of segmented channels, so you have to join Podium channel, and that's 2 segmented there. At least on Twitter, it's open. On Reddit, that's open to everybody. the Telegram, still a little bit more channel oriented, but we want to make sure that we have presence and be able to actually let people know when a room is happening or scheduled, right? So if something's cool is happening on Podium, we do need a distribution channel outside of where we are. So we'll post it on Facebook eventually. We'll post it on Twitter, Reddit, and Farcaster. But to actually have a real solidified external social media isn't really in alignment with what we're trying to do. We want people on Podium, not on Discord.
Yeah, makes absolutely sense. The applications are only for like live streaming. Do you plan to do something also for like podcasting or like
Yes.
offline content? Is that something you want to integrate as well?
No, for sure. There's a vision where I'm first of all, I'm really into art. I'm a big collector of generative art, of AI art. I co-founded the Rhythm Art Collective on Avalanche, which was the first and major collector of generative art there. And one of the things that I felt was missing, at least on Twitter Spaces, was the ability to be able to display something. Like, I didn't want a face-to-face conversation, but I want to display information. I want to show media content while a conversation is happening, to create that more multimedia experience, but not necessarily showing up my face. And so I really have a desire to bring that ability into Podium, to be able to do a little share screen that's not necessarily your face, but showing some item that you're trying to speak to. And that allows you to then move into more of a presentation type of structure where people can present things and have that kind of in-depth conversation. I have an interest in that for sure. Also for in-person, I definitely think the Podium mechanism is very interesting for when we go to in-person, right? So we have a lot of conferences. And if you take these conferences and allow people to actually give everybody a little buzzer or thumbs up, cheer, boo button, right, that they can actually use in the middle of a conference as panel speakers are going, I think that would be a very engaging and interesting way of approaching a conversation to bring more value there. To be able to ask questions and come up on stage. So I think that I do have interest in bringing it into real life arenas as well, versus using digital tools as well as using physical tools. That is with additional growth. But I think the fundamental idea of what we're building is a mechanic that will benefit social media in general. So for me, this audio space is the proving and demonstration of the ability to have direct feedback, direct interaction in a live manner, and then extending that to being able to service text-based needs like long form, short form, being able to do video content, whether short form or long form. It becomes a foundation, a different way of approaching content and identifying what's of interest and not of interest and bringing people together in alignment. So yes, we have plans for a lot more, but we want to prove and demonstrate that this concept is of value to people first.
Yes, completely understand that. And in the end, you can still integrate and leverage different existing parts which already cover like podcasts on chain. I think maybe you heard of pods.media, on which I'm publishing my podcast as well. So basically, you can publish your podcast, which you create on I don't know, Spotify or whatever, and then you can mint it on chain, and your fans or your listeners can mint different episodes on chain, and that could be by for example linked to your platform, giving somebody access if he, I don't know, listened to 10 of your podcasts or something. So proving something like, okay, he knows what you're talking about, or already spent some time with your content. And I think that can be giving nice opportunities in the future.
No, for sure. Yeah, no. So
Nice.
no, this I mean, social media has broadened so much in the ways that people interact with it, and for us, I think it's proving and establishing excellence in one space, and then broadening from there.
Yeah, amazing. Really nice deep dive, I would say, in different areas today. To finish our talk, I would ask you if you have anything you want to share for the future to the community, either if it's the movement community or the Podium listeners, and what is your vision at all for movement itself, but maybe social media in the future. I mean, you already dropped some ideas, but maybe you can like summarize in a big last sentence.
Yeah. Well, I think I like to say this. At the end of the day, what we are about creating is community and bringing value to communities. I think this Web3 space is extremely powerful because at the core of it is about communities creating value amongst themselves, having a way of actually expressing that value, whether it's trading with each other, whether it's showing off items that they own. This Web3 layer allows you to own, to share, to create a system that is global in nature, that's for you specifically. And that's what I'm interested in making sure people understand. You can create something that matches your interest and your values in this space. Podium is meant to be a platform for you to express those views, to share those values, to contribute and grow with other people, and to learn about people with other values and systems and be able to have a cross exchange in ways that are often difficult. We talk a lot about free speech. We talk a lot about freedom and liberty, about economic growth, being rich. Like, Podium is meant to become a facilitator for everyone to be able to leverage, to build towards the future in the world that they want to be in. Podium is creating a public space that's for you. We call it a podium for a reason. People are standing on the podium and they're putting out their words, their vision, their imagery out to you, the people, and you have the opportunity to give feedback back to them. Because you, the listener, are actually on a podium as well. You are who they want to hear from. You are who they want to change their mind or contribute to. And we are creating a system for that. And that's what the Web3 space is for. So as you engage in this space, whether it's on Podium or something else, whether you're working with NFTs, gaming, whether you're looking at meme coins, remember at the end of the day, you're building and part of a community. And be active, participate, support, and also take joy in what you're doing. Every day is a gift. So treat it as such.
Beautiful finish. I thank you so much, Jomari, for coming up today. Gmove and Waza Waza.